The morning sun painted the crystal gardens of New Haven in colors that didn't exist on Earth. Emma Sullivan ran between the tall blue flowers, her laugh echoing across the peaceful colony. At 8 years old, she had never known any world but this one. The purple grass felt soft under her bare feet as she chased the small flying creatures that sparkled like living jewels. Her father, Dr. Kevin Sullivan, watched her play while checking readings on his tablet. The terraforming project had taken 15 years to complete, but seeing his daughter run free under an alien sky made every moment worth it. His wife Maria called from their small house nearby, reminding them that breakfast was ready. "Just 5 more minutes, Mom," Emma shouted back, not wanting to leave the garden. She loved the way the crystal flowers sang when the wind touched them. It was like music that only she could hear. Kevin smiled and walked toward his daughter. "Come on, little star. Your mother made those pancakes you like." Emma grinned and ran to take his hand. Together they walked toward the house, past the other families starting their day in the colony. New Haven was home to 300 humans who had traveled across the galaxy to build something new. They grew food in the rich soil, studied the strange plants and animals, and sent reports back to Earth about their progress. It was a simple life, but a good one. Kevin had just reached the front door when the sky changed. The blue morning suddenly turned dark as huge ships blocked out the sun. They were sleek and black with sharp edges that hurt to look at. Kevin grabbed Emma and pulled her close as other colonists ran from their houses, pointing at the sky and shouting. "Dad, what are those?" Emma asked, her voice small with fear. Kevin didn't know. In 15 years on New Haven, they had never seen any other ships except the supply vessels from Earth. These looked nothing like human technology. They moved without sound, floating like deadly shadows against the now dark sky. The first beam of energy struck the communications tower at the center of the colony. The metal structure melted like ice cream in summer, sending sparks flying in all directions. People screamed and ran in every direction as more beams hit buildings around the settlement. "Get to the emergency shelter!" Kevin yelled to Maria, who had come outside to see what was happening. She nodded and ran toward the underground bunker they had built for emergencies. Kevin lifted Emma into his arms and followed, but they didn't make it far. The aliens came down from their ships like falling stars. They were tall and covered in scales that changed color in the light. Their eyes were yellow and cold, and they moved with the smooth grace of predators. Each one carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Kevin set Emma down behind an overturned farming machine and told her to stay hidden. He picked up a metal tool and stood between his daughter and the approaching aliens. He was just a scientist, not a soldier, but he would fight to protect his child. The largest alien looked at Kevin with what might have been amusement. It spoke in a voice like grinding metal, using words Kevin didn't understand. When Kevin didn't move aside, the alien raised its weapon. The energy beam hit Kevin in the chest and threw him backward. He felt his ribs break as he hit the ground. Pain filled his body, but all he could think about was Emma. He tried to get up, tried to reach for her, but his body wouldn't obey. "Daddy!" Emma screamed and ran to him. The alien reached down with one scaled hand and grabbed her easily. She kicked and fought, but she was too small to break free. More aliens moved through the colony, taking people from their hiding places. They seemed to know exactly where everyone was hidden. Some colonists tried to fight back, but their farming tools were no match for alien weapons. Others tried to run, but the ships above tracked them with beams of light. Kevin watched helplessly as they loaded Emma and 20 other humans into the belly of one of their ships. His daughter's face appeared at a small window, tears streaming down her cheeks as she pressed her hands against the glass. The alien commander stood over Kevin, looking down at the injured human. It said something in its harsh language, then kicked Kevin in the side. More ribs cracked, and Kevin tasted blood in his mouth. As the aliens prepared to leave, Kevin remembered the emergency transmitter. Every human colony had one, hidden and protected in case of disaster. The aliens had destroyed the main communications tower, but they didn't know about the backup system. Using all his remaining strength, Kevin crawled toward the small building that housed the quantum transmitter. The aliens were busy loading their prisoners and didn't notice one wounded human dragging himself across the ground. Kevin's vision blurred as he reached the transmitter controls. His fingers shook as he entered the emergency codes. The device hummed to life, its quantum signal traveling instantly across the galaxy to Earth. He typed a simple message with hands slick with his own blood. New Haven colony attacked. Unknown aliens. They took our children. They took Emma. Please help us. The alien ships rose into the sky as Kevin sent the message. He watched them disappear into the stars, taking his daughter and his neighbors to places he couldn't imagine. The colony burned around him, 15 years of work destroyed in minutes. Kevin collapsed next to the transmitter, his strength finally gone. But he had done what he could. Earth would know what happened here. Earth would know that someone had taken their children. As darkness closed around him, Kevin Sullivan whispered his daughter's name into the smoke-filled air. Somewhere among the stars, Emma was traveling farther from home than any human child had ever gone. But she was not forgotten. The message was already racing through space, carrying news that would change everything. The aliens had made their choice when they decided to take human children. Now they would learn what that choice would cost them. The taking was complete, but this was only the beginning. The quantum message from New Haven reached Earth Defense Command in less than 3 hours. Admiral Jake Harrison was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alert screamed across his personal tablet. He read Kevin Sullivan's final transmission, twice before the words truly sank in. Someone had taken human children. Jake had fought in the border wars against the pirates 20 years ago. He had seen good people die and watched colonies burn. But this was different. This cut deeper than any military defeat ever could. He called the emergency meeting himself. Within 2 hours, every important leader on Earth sat around the war room table. President Lisa Carter arrived still wearing her exercise clothes, having run straight from the gym when she got Jake's call. "Tell me this is a mistake," she said. As she sat down, Jake shook his head. "We checked the transmission 3 times, it's real. The quantum signature matches New Haven's emergency beacon perfectly." Dr. Alex Foster opened his tablet and began reading from his files. "The attack matches the pattern of the Zephyrian Collective. They're slave traders who operate in the outer sectors. They've been taking people from smaller colonies for over 50 years. Why haven't we heard about this before?" President Carter asked. "Because they usually target non-human species," Alex replied. "Most galactic governments see it as someone else's problem. The Zephyrians are careful to avoid anyone who might fight back." Lisa Carter stood up and walked to the big window that showed Earth spinning below them. "They made a mistake this time." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew what she meant. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy as peaceful traders and explorers. Other species saw them as friendly but weak. They had no idea what humans were really capable of when pushed too far. "What do we know about these Zephyrians?" the president asked. Alex pulled up images on the main screen. "They're reptilian, about 7 feet tall, very strong. Their society is built around slavery. They think other species exist only to serve them. They have 17 different slave worlds and a fleet of about 200 ships. Had," said Captain Ryan Miller quietly, from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look at him. Ryan was the youngest ship captain in the Earth Navy, but he had never lost a battle. His dark eyes showed a cold anger that made even the veteran officers uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Captain," President Carter said. "They had 17 slave worlds and 200 ships," Ryan repeated. "By the time we're done with them, they won't have anything left." Lisa Carter studied the young captain. She had read his file many times. Ryan had grown up on a frontier colony much like New Haven. He understood what families like the Sullivans meant to humanity. "Captain Miller, I'm giving you command of the EDF Vengeance," she said. "Take whatever crew you need and as many ships as you want. Bring our people home." "What about the other galactic governments?" asked General Pete Morgan. "This could start a war that spreads across multiple sectors." The president turned back to the window. Far below, she could see the lights of cities where billions of humans lived their daily lives. In a few hours, they would all know that someone had taken their children. They would all demand action. "Let them complain. she said finally. We tried playing by their rules. We tried being the peaceful species that doesn't cause trouble. But they crossed a line when they took our children. Within 6 hours, the news had spread across every human world. The image of 8-year-old Emma Sullivan, smiling in her mother's arms just hours before the attack, appeared on every news screen in human space. The response was immediate and massive. Recruitment stations couldn't handle the crowds of volunteers. Men and women who had never thought about military service stood in lines for hours to sign up. Retired soldiers came out of retirement. Civilian ship captains offered their vessels to the war effort. On Mars, the weapons factories switched to 24-hour production schedules. On Luna, the shipyards began working around the clock to build new warships. Every human colony sent whatever ships and supplies they could spare. Captain Ryan Miller stood on the bridge of the EDF Vengeance and watched his fleet grow. What had started as 12 ships was now 30, then 50, then more. Ships kept arriving. From every direction, their captains asking for orders to join the rescue mission. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Susan Blake, handed him the latest reports. Sir, we're getting volunteers from colonies I've never even heard of. Some of these people are traveling for weeks just to join us. Ryan nodded but didn't smile. They understand what this means, Susan. Every human in the galaxy knows that what happened to Emma could happen to their children too. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez joined them on the bridge. Captain, the new weapon systems are ready for testing. I've never seen technology advance this fast. It's like our anger is making us smarter. Maybe it is, Ryan said quietly. He looked out at the growing fleet and thought about Emma Sullivan, somewhere in the darkness between the stars. She probably thought no one was coming for her. She probably felt alone and afraid. She was wrong. Behind, Ryan, the communications officer, received another message from Earth. Sir, President Carter wants to speak with you. The president's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired, but determined. Captain Miller, I have a message from Emma's father. Kevin Sullivan survived his injuries. He asked me to tell you something. What is it, ma'am? He said to tell you that Emma likes stories about brave knights who rescue people. He wants you to know that you're her knight now. Ryan felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. Tell him we won't. Let her down, ma'am. The transmission ended, and Ryan turned to address his crew. Set course for Zephyrian space. It's time to bring our children home. The fleet began to move, dozens of human warships heading into the unknown. Behind them, Earth continued to mobilize, for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The awakening was complete. Now came the hunt. The human fleet entered Zephyrian space like a storm made of metal and fury. Captain Ryan Miller stood on the bridge of the EDF Vengeance, watching his sensors track 47 ships moving in perfect formation behind him. What had started as a rescue mission had grown into something much larger. First target coming up, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Susan Blake from her position at the weapons station. Zephyrian military outpost, just like intelligence said it would be. Any signs they know we're coming? Ryan asked. No, sir. Their patrol ships are following normal routes. They have no idea we're here. Ryan nodded. The humans had learned to move quietly through space, using technology the Zephyrians had never seen before. The alien ships were fast and well-armed, but they were built for fighting other species who announced their attacks with warnings and demands. Humans didn't bother with warnings. All ships, this is Vengeance Actual, Ryan spoke into his communicator. Target the weapons platforms first, then the ships. Leave the communications array intact until last. We need to hear what they're saying. The attack lasted exactly 4 minutes. The Zephyrian outpost had been there for 30 years, a symbol of their power in this sector. In 4 minutes, it became a cloud of glowing debris floating in empty space. The human ships moved through the destruction like sharks, picking up every piece of useful information they could find. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez brought the intelligence reports to Ryan's ready room an hour later. Captain, we found something interesting in their computer systems. Ryan looked up from the star charts he had been studying. What kind of something? Ship logs. The Zephyrians keep very detailed records of all their movements. We can track the ships that attacked New Haven. Tony activated the wall display and showed Ryan a map of Zephyrian space. Red lines traced the path of the slave ships from New Haven to their destination. They took our people to a processing station called Dominion's Edge, Tony explained. It's where they break in new slaves before selling them to other worlds. Ryan felt his hands clench into fists. How long ago? 3 weeks, sir. But the good news is that the station is designed to hold prisoners for months before moving them. There's a good chance Emma and the others are still there. Where is this station? Tony pointed to a spot deep in Zephyrian territory. Here, sir. It's heavily defended and surrounded by patrol fleets. Getting there won't be easy. Ryan studied the map for a long moment. The station was protected by layers of defenses that would normally take months to break through. But Ryan wasn't planning a normal attack. Tony, how many more outposts are between us and Dominion's Edge? 12, sir. Each one bigger than the last. Then we'd better get started. The human fleet moved deeper into Zephyrian space, and their attacks became more brutal with each target. They didn't just destroy the outposts. They carved them apart piece by piece, making sure every Zephyrian who saw the wreckage would understand that something new and terrible had entered their territory. On the 5th day, Commander Thexara received his first report about the attacks. He was aboard Dominion's Edge, checking on the human prisoners he had taken from New Haven. The humans fascinated him, especially the small female child who had somehow learned to speak basic Zephyrian. In just 3 weeks. Commander, his aide reported, we've lost contact with 5 Outer Rim stations. Thexara barely looked up from his data pad. Probably equipment failures. Those stations are old. Sir, the last station sent a distress signal before going silent. They reported unknown ships attacking them. This got Thexara's attention. Unknown ships? What kind of unknown ships? The report said they were human vessels, sir. Thexara laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. Humans? Those weak creatures don't have the stomach for real war. It's probably pirates using stolen human ships. But as the days passed, more reports came in. Station after station went silent, always preceded by sightings of human ships. The attacks were too precise, too well coordinated to be random pirate. Raids in the prison sections of Dominion's Edge. Emma Sullivan heard the guards talking in worried voices. She had learned enough of their language to understand that something was happening in the outer sectors. Something that made the Zephyrians nervous. She shared this news with the other human prisoners during their daily work period. Her father's friend, Dr. Matt Johnson, listened carefully to what she had learned. Emma, are you sure they said human ships? He whispered. Emma nodded. They keep saying the same word over and over. I think it means human in their language. Matt felt hope stir in his chest for the first time since the capture. Your father got the message out, didn't he? He warned Earth about what happened. Do you think they're coming for us? Asked Linda Parker, one of the other colonists. I think, Matt said quietly, that someone made a very big mistake when they decided to take human children. Back in space, the human fleet had grown to over 100 ships. Word of the rescue mission had spread throughout human space, and volunteers continued to arrive daily. Some were military vessels, but many were civilian ships that had been converted into warships by their angry crews. Captain Miller received regular updates from Earth. The entire human government had shifted into what they called war mode. Factories that had been making farming equipment were now building weapons. Scientists who had been studying peaceful technologies were designing new ways to destroy enemy ships. Dr. Pete Morgan, the fleet's expert on alien psychology, tried to warn Captain Miller about what was happening. Captain, we need to be careful. This level of anger is changing us. The crew is becoming more violent, more willing to use extreme measures. Ryan looked at him with cold eyes. Good. The Zephyrians understand only one kind of language. We're learning to speak it. The 12th and final outpost fell on the 10th day of the campaign. As the human ships regrouped for the final assault, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone on the bridge smile. Captain, Susan Blake reported, we're picking up a massive structure ahead. It matches the description of Dominion's Edge. Ryan stood up from his command chair. Signal the fleet. Tell them we've found our target. Throughout the human ships, crews prepared for the biggest battle of their lives. They had crossed hundreds of light years and destroyed everything in their path to reach this moment. Emma Sullivan was somewhere inside that station, along with dozens of other humans who had been stolen from their homes. The hunt was almost over. Now came the hardest part. Dominion's Edge was the largest structure Commander Thexara had ever seen built by his people. The massive space station stretched for miles in every direction, housing over 10,000 slaves from dozens of different worlds. It was a monument to Zephyrian power and cruelty. Now it was about to become their tomb. Captain Ryan Miller stood on the bridge of the EDF Vengeance and watched his sensors count the approaching human ships. What had started as a rescue fleet of 12 vessels had grown into an armada of over 200 warships. Every human colony had sent what they could spare. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Susan Blake. "Look at them all. Ships from Mars, Luna, the Jupiter colonies, and dozens of frontier worlds formed up behind the Vengeance. Civilian freighters flew alongside military destroyers, their cargo holds converted into weapon bays by crews who had never fought a war but understood what was at stake. "Captain," Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez reported from his station, "all ships are ready for attack. The new weapon systems are charged and operating perfectly." Ryan nodded. The human fleet carried weapons that pushed the limits of known physics. Plasma cannons that could cut through any armor, missiles that could track targets across solar systems, energy shields that bent light itself. But the real weapon was something the Zephyrians would never understand. It was the pure rage of an entire species that had been pushed too far. "All ships, this is Captain Miller." Ryan spoke into his communicator. "Today we bring our children home. Remember what they took from us. Remember why we're here." Inside Dominion's Edge, alarms began screaming as Zephyrian sensors detected the approaching human fleet. Commander Thexara rushed to his command center, his scaled face showing fear for the first time in his long career. "How many ships?" he demanded from his sensor operator. "Over 200, Commander. All human vessels." Thexara felt his blood turn cold. 200 human ships meant this wasn't a rescue mission. This was an invasion. These creatures he had dismissed as weak and primitive had somehow assembled a war fleet larger than most galactic governments possessed. "Send a message to all human ships," he ordered. "Tell them we're willing to negotiate the return of their people." The human response came back in less than a minute. It was Captain Miller's voice, cold and final. "There is no negotiation. You took one of our children. Now you face the consequences." The human fleet opened fire without another word. The attack was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The humans didn't try to disable the station or force a surrender. They carved into Dominion's Edge with surgical precision, cutting away entire sections while leaving others untouched. Thexara realized with growing horror that the humans knew exactly where the prisoners were being held. They were destroying everything except the prison sections, showing a level of intelligence gathering that should have been impossible. "Commander," his weapons officer shouted over the sound of explosions. "They're not trying to destroy the station. They're cutting us apart piece by piece. Why would they do that?" The answer came when the first human boarding ships attached themselves to the station's hull. These weren't normal assault vessels. They were designed to cut through armor like a hot knife through ice, creating perfect entry points for the soldiers. Inside, Major Kate Phillips led the first wave of human troops into Dominion's Edge. She had volunteered for this mission the day she heard about Emma Sullivan. Kate had a daughter Emma's age back on Earth, and the thought of that little girl in alien hands filled her with a fury that made her unstoppable. The Zephyrian guards fought desperately, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Human soldiers moved through the station corridors like a force of nature, their advanced armor making them nearly invincible while their weapons cut through everything in their path. "Prisoner Section 7 secured," Kate reported into her radio. "We've found 37 humans alive and in reasonable condition. Any sign of the New Haven colonists?" Captain Miller asked. "Not yet, sir. Still searching." Deep in the heart of the station, Emma Sullivan heard the sound of fighting getting closer. She had spent weeks organizing the human prisoners and even some of the alien slaves into a resistance network. When the guards ran past their cells toward the battle, Emma made her move. "Now," she whispered to Dr. Matt Johnson. The 9-year-old girl had somehow learned to override the electronic locks on their prison cells. As the doors opened, 24 human prisoners rushed out into the corridor. They had no weapons except their bare hands and the tools they had stolen during work periods. They didn't need much more than that. The Zephyrian guards who had tormented them for weeks suddenly found themselves facing their former victims. Humans, who had been beaten and starved, fought with a desperate strength that shocked their captors. Emma led a group of freed prisoners toward the station's command center. She had listened to the guards talk for weeks and learned the layout of the entire station. Now she was going to use that knowledge to help her rescuers. Commander Thexera was trying to coordinate his defenses when the door to his command center exploded inward. Major Kate Phillips stepped through the smoking wreckage, her weapon aimed directly at his head. "Where are the New Haven colonists?" she demanded. Thexera raised his hand slowly. "I can show you. We can make a deal." Kate's finger tightened on the trigger. "The only deal is that you get to live long enough to see them freed." Before Thexera could respond, a small voice spoke from behind Kate. "He's lying. I know where everyone is." Kate turned to see a young girl with dirty blonde hair and fierce blue eyes. Despite weeks of captivity, Emma Sullivan stood straight and proud, looking every inch the daughter of colonists who had traveled across the galaxy to build something new. "You must be Emma," Kate said gently. Emma nodded. "Are you here to take us home?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're here to take you home." Within hours, every human prisoner on Dominion's edge had been freed. The Zephyrian defenders had been overwhelmed by an enemy that fought with absolute conviction and showed no mercy to those who had tortured innocents. Commander Thexera found himself in chains, watching as human soldiers documented every horror they found in his station. The torture chambers, the slave markets, the medical experiments on helpless prisoners. All of it was being recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. Captain Miller stood in the ruins of the command center and looked out at the human fleet surrounding the crippled station. Emma Sullivan stood beside him, no longer the frightened child who had been taken from New Haven, but a young woman who had seen the worst the galaxy could offer and survived. "What happens now?" she asked. Ryan looked down at her. "Now the galaxy learns what happens when someone hurts a human child." The reckoning was complete, but the consequences were just beginning. 6 months had passed since the rescue at Dominion's edge, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Zephyrian collective no longer existed. Their entire civilization had been erased by human forces in what historians would later call the fastest military campaign in galactic history. Emma Sullivan stood before the Galactic Council on Harmony Point, the neutral station where representatives from 47 different species gathered to discuss matters of universal importance. She was 9 years old now, but her eyes held wisdom that most adults would never possess. The great council chamber fell silent as she walked to the speaking platform. Ambassadors from dozens of worlds watched this small human child who had become the most famous person in the galaxy. Her story had been told on every inhabited planet, but today she would speak for herself. "My name is Emma Sullivan," she began, her voice clear and strong. 6 months ago, aliens came to my home and took me away from my family. They hurt me and scared me and made me work like a slave. They thought I was just a weak little human who couldn't fight back." She paused and looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. They were wrong. In the back of the chamber, President Lisa Carter watched with pride as Emma continued her testimony. The young girl had insisted on speaking to the council herself, refusing to let any adult speak for her. She wanted the galaxy to hear directly from one of the children they had tried to harm. "The aliens who took me thought humans were weak because we try to solve problems with words instead of weapons," Emma said. "They thought we were cowards because we prefer to trade instead of fight. They didn't understand that we choose to be peaceful. We don't have to be." Ambassador Kethron of the Altarian Republic shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His people had always seen humans as useful but harmless trading partners. The events of the past 6 months had changed that view completely. When someone threatens our children, Emma continued, humans stop being merchants and explorers. We become something else, something that won't stop until our families are safe. She gestured to the viewing screen behind her, which showed images from the human campaign against the Zephyrians. Burning space stations, destroyed fleets, and former slave worlds now protected by human ships. In 4 months, my people destroyed an empire that had existed for over 200 years. They freed 17 different species that had been slaves. They turned the Zephyrian homeworld into a monument to the people who had suffered there. The Zephyrian homeworld was indeed a monument now. The humans had built a massive memorial where the capital city once stood, listing the names of every person who had died in Zephyrian slave camps. The few surviving Zephyrians lived on reservation worlds under human supervision. Admiral Jake Harrison, now head of the Galactic Peace Enforcement Division, stepped forward to address the council. His new organization included ships from dozens of species, all united under human leadership after witnessing what humanity could accomplish when properly motivated. The events surrounding Emma's rescue have taught us something important, Jake said. The galaxy has rules about how civilized species should behave toward each other, but those rules only work if everyone follows them. He activated another display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas where slavery, piracy, and other crimes against sapient beings had been eliminated by human forces. 17 species that were enslaved by the Zephyrians are now free, Jake continued. 14 of them have requested human protection. 6 have joined our peace enforcement fleet. The galaxy is safer today than it has been in centuries. Ambassador Vexitar of the Centauri Federation stood up to address the council. Admiral Harrison, your species has demonstrated remarkable military capability, but many of us are concerned about humanity's aggressive response to this situation. Emma stepped back to the microphone before Jake could respond. You are scared of us now, she said simply. The chamber fell silent again. The 9-year-old human child had stated what every alien ambassador was thinking, but none wanted to say out loud. That's good, Emma continued. You should be scared. Not because we want to hurt you, but because you need to understand what happens when you hurt us. President Carter rose from her seat and joined Emma at the platform. The child speaks truth that many adults struggle to understand. Humanity has no desire to conquer the galaxy or rule over other species. We want the same thing we've always wanted, to explore, to trade, to learn, and to raise our children in peace. She paused and looked directly at the alien ambassadors. But if anyone threatens our children again, anywhere in the galaxy, they will face the same fate as the Zephyrians. There will be no warnings, no negotiations, and no mercy. The president activated one final display. It showed the current strength of human military forces. Over 3,000 warships spread across human space, with more being built every day. The galaxy's peaceful traders had revealed themselves to be the most powerful military force in known space. We have established new rules, President Carter announced. Any species that engages in slavery, torture, or crimes against children will be dealt with immediately and permanently. The Galactic Council may debate and discuss. Humanity will act. As the session ended, ambassadors from across the galaxy filed out of the chamber in thoughtful silence. Many of them sent urgent messages to their homeworlds, warning their governments that the balance of galactic power had shifted forever. Emma Sullivan walked with her parents through the corridors of Harmony Point. Kevin Sullivan had recovered from his injuries and traveled to the council session to support his daughter. Maria Sullivan held Emma's hand as reporters from dozens of worlds tried to get interviews with the most famous child in the galaxy. Are you okay, sweetheart? Maria asked quietly. Emma squeezed her mother's hand. I'm fine, Mom. I'm not scared anymore. Why not? Emma smiled, and for a moment she looked like the innocent 8-year-old who had played in the crystal gardens of New Haven. Because now they're the ones who should be scared. On Earth, in the main plaza of New Geneva, a simple memorial stood beneath the open sky. It showed a hologram of Emma Sullivan as she had been before the attack. A laughing child playing in an alien garden, safe and happy in her parents' love. Below the image, words had been carved in every known galactic language. We are human. We protect our own. Cross this line at your peril. Ships from every corner of human space passed by the memorial daily, their crews reminded of why they served and what they protected. The galaxy had learned to listen when humans spoke of their children. The trembling continued, not from fear, alone, but from the recognition that humanity had become something new, a species that would cross any distance, fight any enemy, and pay any price to protect what they loved. The Zephyrians had taken one human child. The galaxy would remember. The price they paid forever.